Lily, we're going to be reviewing the Blair Witch today. Are you scared?
I'm scared to close my eyes. I'm scared to open them.
Hey guys, GetAwesome Gaming here, back with another review. As always, thanks for taking the time to check out my videos, and if this is your first time watching, please consider subscribing to the channel. This time I reviewed Blair Witch by developer Bloober Team. I remember when the Blair Witch movie came out and the craze that was around it, and yeah, I'm aware I'm dating myself here a little. I was really excited when I saw the trailers for this, and I thought that a horror game that takes place in the Blair Witch setting could be really interesting. The game takes place in the Black Hills Forest of Burkittsville, Maryland, where the game's main character, a former police officer, Ellis, and his German Shepherd Bullet, are aiding in the search for a 9-year-old boy who went missing in the woods. As the game progresses, it becomes evident that Ellis has mental health issues stemming from his past trauma, and that the Black Hills Forest isn't a run-of-the-mill woodland. The game was creepy and did well overall at delivering an unsettling first-person horror adventure. The game relies on puzzle mechanics as well as encounters with unnamed creatures, which I can only assume are the Blair Witch's servants or henchmen. I'm really not sure what to call them exactly, as the game never gives them a name. The film had no such creatures, but I understand the need to take liberties with the lore to create an experience that works as a game. Taking that into consideration, I wish that the game would have made more of an effort to reference that lore, even if only through collectibles to give the player some backstory. Outside of a few set pieces used in the movie and the fact that there was a witch, there was very little attempt to actually tie the game to the movie. Many players that may check out this game may have never seen the movie and have no idea who the Blair Witch even is. In a game that is trying to elicit a fear response from the player, providing context for who the Blair Witch was or the legends surrounding her was something that the movie got right back in '99, and to feel the game was dropping the ball 20 years later was just disappointing. The star of this game for me was Bullet, as I'm a dog owner myself. He isn't just for aesthetics either, as he aids Ellis by tracking down clues and aiding in combat by growling and barking in the direction of enemies, alerting the player to which direction to expect the enemy to come from. You have to keep a close eye on him in many sections of the game, as separation means certain death for Ellis. Also, he was just a good boy, and I'm a sucker for pups. One of the major weaknesses, though, was the camcorder. You get the camcorder early on in the game. It strangely appears to have some magical properties that is never really explained. It's used in various methods throughout the game. There are tapes that alter reality. An example would be a tree that has fallen over blocking your path, and you have a tape of the tree falling over. You rewind the tape to the point before the tree falls, and voila, no more tree in your way. The other major use comes later on when you lose your ability to engage the enemies as you previously had, and the camcorder becomes a way of identifying where the enemy is so you can avoid them. I appreciate that the camcorder was a nod to the found footage genre of film that the movie had a hand in mainstreaming, but I just felt it could have been utilized in a much more creative fashion than it was. While the game did give me moments of fear, there was a lot of sections in the game that fell flat for me. First off, the witch's minions are an odd mix of mechanics and presentation. Ellis's only means of dealing with them is using a flashlight to either kill them or scare them off. The game really never makes clear exactly which one is happening. The only problem is that the monsters hide behind trees, so the player never gets a good look at what he is fighting. It was the right choice from a design perspective for a horror game, but it made the flashlight mechanic seem off to me. I'm aiming the light at these things thinking, how is a little light on their forearms and lower leg really harming them? The mechanic just seemed at odds with the fact that the enemy was always trying to shield itself from my view. It felt somewhat like the flashlight was decided on very early in development, and along the way someone decided that they didn't want the player to get a good view of what he was fighting, but it was too late to alter concepts that the game had already been built around. This is all conjecture, of course, but it just seemed to explain what I felt was an otherwise flawed design choice. The one thing I really couldn't square with, though, was the camp sections. Periodically, the game keeps returning Ellis to the same campgrounds. Each time you return there, the camp's in a different state of decomposition, indicating more time has passed than what Ellis's journey would lead you to believe. And each time you return to this camp, you need to use another mechanic involving either Bullet or the camcorder that is either poorly explained or just not explained at all. In these sections of the game, if the player isn't immediately aware of the method needed to progress, they can be wandering around in the woods for a very long time, as there is no path out and you will just keep circling back to the campsite. The game literally has you walking around in circles in the woods. The problem is that during these sections there are no enemies and Ellis is in no threat of harm. They were tedious, pointless, and just destroyed the pacing of the game. The other problem was the game was a very short experience and it just felt like these sections were there to pad the runtime. I will say that in the film, the 3 film students do get lost and end up walking in circles in the woods, and these sections may have been an attempt to recreate that feeling of disorientation, but I only really felt that for the first time dealing with it. The second and third time through those sections inspired feelings of irritation more than anything else. They just dragged down the experience. The other thing I unfortunately feel needs to be addressed is the bugs. Bugs, bugs, bugs. This game upon release was a riddle mess in what was otherwise a short, non-open world experience. I had quite a few bugs and glitches in my playthrough, from floating dogs, to game crashes, to getting stuck on a tree branch and being unable to move multiple times and having to reload the game each time. I understand that games often release with a few glitches, but these were plentiful, and in a style of game where there was no good reason for having so many. I will say my last night playing, there was nearly a 3 GB patch that claimed to address a lot of these problems. I'm sure it probably did, as I didn't happen to notice any of these new bugs after I downloaded the update, but the version of the game I played had them, and an experience this short, the veritable bounty of issues was jarring. I know it seems like I have a lot of distaste for this game, but honestly it's more frustration. It gets the basics of a horror experience right, and while I felt the story concluded in a very obvious and cliche manner, I also felt the last chapter of the game was the most successfully frightening part of the entire experience. I wish the game would have just had more time to cook, because while it gets core concepts right, it was mired down by both technical issues and poor design choices. I'm more upset about what this game could have got right than what it ultimately got wrong. I also noticed after my last video I didn't give any personal recommendation to my viewers as to if I think the game is a good purchase or not. I apologize for that oversight, it won't be an issue going forward. I would say with this game, if you happen to have Game Pass, you already have it, it's worth a playthrough. At the $30 price tag though, I felt the game was significantly overpriced for what it offered. I didn't feel like I was getting half of a AAA experience here, but more like a quarter. So with that in mind, I would be okay with saying this game is worth a look in the $15 price range. Hopefully it will go on special around the Halloween season, as that would have been a better release window for this game to begin with. Well, that's it for this review. If you found this content helpful, a like on the video would be greatly appreciated. I also want to thank you all again for watching this. Your time is not taken for granted. With that, this video is a wrap. Until next time, be awesome to each other.